Hi, you're listening to Childless and Moving Onward. This is the place where we talk about thriving in life when you're a woman who is childless, not by choice, regardless of the road that brought you to childlessness. Hi, and welcome to episode 22 of Childless and Moving Onward. I'm Gail Miller, your host. I am a life coach, physician, and speaker. And my focus is on helping women who are childless, not by choice, to live fulfilling and whole lives. My guest today is Elizabeth Tiglao-Guss. We're going to be talking about finding meaning and purpose through your struggles. Elizabeth is the host of By Chance podcast, Sacred Conversations with Women Who Don't Have Kids by Chance and Not by Choice. She is a social entrepreneur and founded Link of Hearts, a lifestyle brand raising awareness for mental health and selling inspirational products for over 10 years. She's also a personal coach who focuses on helping women thrive rather than simply survive. She helps women who are ready to transform their lives and empower themselves to live with purpose, meaning, and radical self-love. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me here. It's such an honor to be here.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. And I just love the radical self-love. So tell us about yourself.
Where do I begin? Basically, like you've shared, I used to have an online store and I had that for about 10 years. And that was a mission based solely in raising awareness for mental health. And that was inspired by my own journey. So I have had mental health struggles for most of my 20s. And that led me to my mental health advocacy. And so when I had the opportunity to start my own business, my very first business, that's what I did. And that was through Link of Hearts. And as life happened within the last 10 years as well, I have also battled with infertility, um, including 3 years of failed adoptions. So that's totaling about 10 years. So that's pretty much the personal life side by side, my entrepreneurship, my 10 years of entrepreneurship, which I found myself last year on really finding ways on redefining myself because again, you're in the trenches. There's a lot of things happening personally, right? And I found myself, I'm also about to turn 50 this year. So I feel like I'm in my new era and I needed to redefine myself now that I am no longer going to be a mother, like just like how we had worked for it and planned it for about 10 years of our marriage. And so we really just ended all our efforts last year, which led me now to this new passion. I started a podcast of By Chance and really just having secret conversations with women who don't have kids by chance, just like you, right? And, starting my coaching program. And again, all inspired by my own journey because I feel like that's the only way that I could really stay true to myself and offer that everything that I have learned in really the last few decades and putting them all together and becoming who I'm really meant to be is sort of like that goal of mine, right? Every day we get to work on. So that's the summary of it.
All right. It is, you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, if I'm not going to be a mom, who am I?
Right.
Right. And so that redefinition is needed personally, I think, and because like society views us through the lens of, are you married? Do you
Hmm.
have kids? Like that is how society judges women. Uh, so I love what you're doing and that you are talking about redefining yourself because childlessness doesn't have to define any of us, right?
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I think I want to point out that it wasn't an easy ride, right? Like, and so for me to even get to a point where I made a conscious decision and a choice to redefine myself, it took me many years. And the beauty of going all these struggles, and even going back to like the last couple of decades of having to go through depression and anxiety for, again, a whole nother part of my life, it really gave me the chance to be broken open. And it's in that brokenness that led me to really dig deep and figure out, how is this going to work? Like, what do I want to do in my life? It's almost like I never just settled, like, okay, this is how it's going to be. Now what? Like, let's figure out a plan. While it sounds easier said than done, right? It it was a lot of work. It was a lot of self work and growth and development that I was very conscious of. But I also went through times of not capable of doing anything, not capable of doing the self work because I was physically, emotionally, spiritually depleted. So there's a lot in there, and I think I've just learned over the years, and again, and now you just take it one day at a time, and to to really now make that decision to redefine myself is such a big task, right? It's not an overnight thing. And I continue to seek therapy. So I go through it, and my husband does too individually. So we do it individually, we do it as a couple. And so it's great to be on the same page, and we're working on ourselves, um, as far as our growth and our mindset. And so having gone through all of that, now deciding, now what? What do we do? What do I do? So it's like, I don't know. If anything, if I could just mention a little bit of my husband, he's still kind of figuring that out right now. We're in a different part of this journey. I've been very open, and I think men handle things differently as well. And so I think as women, we've been, again, like you, to your point, the society has really defined this role of motherhood as an essential part of ourselves, of our identity. And that's what I had. Even culturally, that was my role. And so I'm surrounded by friends and family who have children. So that was really hard. And it's still hard. And I continue to go through that, but I just am choosing not to focus on that so much anymore, and just like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on myself, because other women may not have this opportunity because they have the children, right? I don't have children, so it's my time. I get to redefine and focus on myself this time around.
That's beautiful. Yeah. You make a great point, which is, we talk about, especially as coaches, uh, or anybody in any way helping those who are childless, not by choice. We talk about these terms like redefine yourself, find purpose, all that. But the terms are simple. The process to get there
Mm,
is anything but quick and easy,
mhm.
right? So, and it's always a work in progress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress, and it's easy to just get relaxed and be complacent, right? Like if things are okay, then it's easy to just like sit there and just like, okay. But then for me, that's when I feel the need, because I'll be honest, I feel like there is this void inside of me. There is this hole, if you will, and they will always be there. And I think I'm okay with that. I've accepted that. I'm making peace with that. But then what do I do with that hole? I want to fill it up. How? I'm figuring that right now. But the things that I'm doing so far that sort of fill my cup and fill that hole, they're working for me in this moment. A year from now, I don't know if they will. So I'm constantly, like you said, it's the process, the whole thing. It's like we're always a work in progress. If we have this conversation next year, things may be different. Who knows? But in this moment, things are working out, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Next year, it may be different, or
Right.
next week.
Right.
You go through periods where you're feeling good and that hole is still there, but it's not so like in front of you.
Hmm.
And then a trigger happens or something happens,
Right.
and that hole feels like it's just gaping open wider than ever, right?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
never stops, right? It's just what it is. I'm actually amazed. Like I'm in this part of this one Facebook support group, and I find it interesting reading some of the women's posts, and they post them anonymously. But I find it interesting. Like we're all in different parts of this journey, but a lot of them are still very much in that painful, deep pit, like the dark pit that we all go through. And sometimes it's easier to just stay there,
Yeah.
right? And until you get to really make that choice, like, okay, time to get up now because this is no longer working, right? Like this is and it's sad. And obviously we both know how that's like, and it's easier said than done, but you know, we just do what we can.
Yeah. How would you, and you don't have to go into details, share
Mhm.
what you are comfortable with, but how would you describe your process of pulling yourself out of that pit?
Um, I think I've learned what I've learned from also my mental health struggles is to create a toolbox that I call. And again, I read books, I listen to podcasts. I'm constantly learning. Even more recently in the last year, like even when I'm in the shower, I bring my phone and then I'm like listening to whatever I need in that moment. And I think when I know, and in fact, this last week, a grief came over me, like this wave of grief. And I realized it's been a year since we've decided to end all our adoption efforts. So it was that anniversary, which I don't really like to call it anniversary, but it is what it is. And it really just reminded me of like, oh wow, it's been a year. Is this really what it's going to be? So I went through these days of just nonstop crying, and it was almost felt like I was back in that pit. But what I've learned over the last couple of decades is really allowing myself to feel whatever comes up is exactly what needed to come up. And because there's still a lot of healing to be done. And again, this healing is not linear, right? And it's work in progress, and it's a lifetime journey. And I think part of knowing that and being aware that, oh, these waves of grief, it's going to happen. And for a moment, I was like, why am I crying? Why? Like it just felt heavy. And that's when I really realized, and I had a talk with my husband, and I said, I don't even know if these are my hormones or if it's really the grief or a combination of both. I don't know, but I will allow it to happen. So I think it didn't work. I canceled everything on my calendar because I needed to stay in that moment. And once I processed it in a way that I allowed my body to just go through, and tears are very healing, I believe. So I went through that. And then I coincidentally also had a therapy scheduled around that time. So I shed more tears. And then once I know that, okay, so this is how it's going to be. So I think after 2 days of crying, by third day, I was still sort of wallowing, and I was still like, okay. And I was like finding food to sort of like comfort me. I was like, okay, what's next? Like time to sort of stand up again. And I started taking care of myself, and I scheduled a massage. And I also believe that massage is, get rid of your toxins in your body. So I believe in the somatic aspect of it, and then taking care of your emotional, and then spiritual, feeding myself with what I believe and my faith. And I think with that concoction and pulling whatever tools that I still need, that works for me. It's about really finding all these tools that work for you. I meditate every day anyway. I've had that practice for 6 years, and that's really helped a lot in my mental health. And it's been life changing. And that's also serving me right now when I go through these moments of grief and whatnot, and just going through that dark pit. And yeah, it's developing all these tools, I think, what's important, because what works for me may not necessarily work for you and for others, right? But I'm always open to trying these different tools. And even the type of meditation, my meditation in the morning is non-negotiable. It's just this specific type of meditation, not very spiritual. It's just very like, using a mantra. But then I also been doing this tapping meditation. And there's an app for it. It's just free. It's a guided app. And because I believe in like tapping on all those like pressure points in your body, because I know that my body is like, I've been crying. There's a lot happening. So I feel like, oh, I'm going to add that today because I think I'm needing it. So I've learned a lot over the years of like what's working for me and what's not. And if nothing's working, it's fine too. I'm just going to lay on the couch and watch Netflix because sometimes that's all I need. That's all we need, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You touch on a really important point, which is allowing those feelings because it can be really frightening.
Yeah.
Because who wants to feel that pain, right? And so there's this tendency to think if I, push it away, I'll feel better. And there's also this tendency from society of, well, just look at the positive, forget those bad feelings. Um, but in reality, that doesn't that doesn't work. It
It
does
doesn't
the
work.
yeah. Yeah.
Because you repress those feelings and they're bound to come out in one
Yeah.
way or another. And it manifests itself. It can manifest itself into an illness. And I've had that. I used to have like really bad stomach ache. I would get migraine and I still get migraine here and there. But now when I do get a migraine, I ask myself, what's happening? Is this coming from stress? So it's like asking myself what is going on and really checking in on myself. Like, what do I need today? What does my body need today? And again, it may sound a little woo woo, but it's just from everything that I've learned. This is what works for me. Really checking. That's part of my self care. That's part of my self love that I'm still learning the true meaning of the self love and really self check in. I ask myself that. And if I need to just lay there and not practice anything or not do anything, then I'll just lay there and I'll watch something. Sometimes I still get hard on myself, like, oh my gosh, I wasn't productive today. I do have the freedom to do that, right? Because I do have my own business. And so I can rearrange my schedule. I have that liberty. And I know it's not easy for others. And so sometimes it's easier to just shove down your feelings and then pretend everything's okay and distract yourself. Sometimes it works, but only temporarily because it's going to come out in one way or another.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's how did we get to this place? I know that some people would say it is woo woo, but
Yeah.
how do we get to this place where we're viewing things like that as woo woo, especially when we know our feelings, our our emotions all have a place in our body and come out in ways that are physical.
It's sad, right? It's
Yeah.
disappointing and it I think it's the lack of knowledge because when we don't know about something, like what are they doing? That is weird. Like, really check in with myself. Like, we make all these judgments and criticisms because we don't understand it.
Yeah.
But once we do, I'm like, oh, wow, there's actually science behind this.
Yeah.
And I think I've learned to just say, oh, this might sound woo woo because I do know that's the language that everyone uses. Right. But yeah, I don't get it either, but it's
Yeah.
sad. Like, that's what it is. Although now there's more conversations about it. And so now I think people are interested. What is that woo stuff? So maybe in a way, it's kind of like we're going the right direction.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope we need more of it. Yeah. We
Right,
definitely
right.
need more of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me about your podcast and what led you to change from um Link of Hearts, correct?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
Link
yes.
of Hearts to change from that to what you're doing and to build this podcast.
I think I got to a point last year that I was exhausted from everything, from the adoption, from the roller coaster ride. And unfortunately, I have almost subconsciously associated that business with that journey. because it was literally, I opened it in 2014 while everything was going great, but it was also the time that I had my first miscarriage. And really alongside that journey, it was like almost like really parallel to each other. Like I was going, and then we decided the infertility treatments. So I went through the IUIs and then the IVFs for a good 5 to 6 years. And then we took a break. I was done. And then I was like, okay, I'll be open to adoption because my husband was open to adoption first and I was not. So I needed to open up to that possibility. And we finally did. That was like, it just so happened to be around 2020, 2019, when we sort of entertained the idea and I opened up to the idea of it. So everything that I was doing on that business, it was really alongside this journey. And I loved it. I'm still passionate about the whole mental health advocacy, but I got exhausted. And that also led to me being exhausted with the physical inventory and all the work that went with it. And the other reason is I think I wanted to really connect more with people because personally, with my journey, I felt disconnected from everyone having gone through the infertility. No one understood. So my needs were changing as I was evolving, as I was growing, and I was learning from the whole experience of the infertility. My needs were becoming more of I need to be surrounded by women who understand me because it felt really lonely. And even now, I think I mentioned earlier, family and friends, they all have children. And I was like, I'm not the only one who's feeling this way. Now, I really didn't do research or I didn't look online if there are communities. I don't think I had the capacity in me. But when I was transitioning and I said, okay, I think I'm going to close this, I was deciding last year. I decided to close on the online store. And then this year was all about the pivot and finding clarity on where I want to go. And I felt really called to start community, to build a community of women who don't have children. And I was like, I want to be surrounded by them because this is, again, like feeling really lonely, but where do I find them? But then I said, maybe I can start these conversations. And then I had a resistance because I was like, podcast me? Like, I don't even like the sound of my voice. I have a lot of insecurities when it comes to that. But then I just felt this strong calling. And I was like, maybe I'm supposed to really do this. I get scared, but then I do it anyway. So I started it and it's been the most life changing because I'm sure you can attest to this, but these conversations have been so powerful and it's been cathartic to me personally. But I did it out of that, like just really needing this and feeling that I'm not the only one who feels this way, I'm sure. And I want to feel a sense of belonging somewhere, but I couldn't find that group. I couldn't find this community. And so here we are.
So you go out and you make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. What I tend to do these days.
So you talk about, well, tell me about your coaching that you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly new to it. It's funny because during with the link of hearts, a lot of people have been messaging me privately and emailing me, and it's all about like because I've shared my story about mental health struggles, specifically depression and anxiety, and having some, sexual traumas when I was a child, and all of these experiences that I've had. I've been very open book to a lot of the things that have happened to me. And so people were really messaging me. And so I was there for support. I did what I could to the extent of what I could say, right? Because I would refer them to therapy if necessary. And almost it made me feel good, but it left me with wanting to do more. How else can I help them? And I think that led me to really the desire to do some kind of coaching. And when I learned about the coaching, like you can really coach. There's no federation yet that is like mandating, certification, right? But then I said, I just want to learn the tools and I really want to learn the framework on how I can best communicate with people and really be able to help them out. And so I did the online school certification. So which I did that And so now I think I'm really just about having these conversations with women, really supporting them and helping them be radically honest with themselves, because I feel like that is the first step to really making a change. And it's hard to do that on your own at times. And so being able to be there to support someone, especially a woman who is childless not by choice, I think can be so powerful to just leading them to that first step and helping them see. And I've had also this experience, right? It's like, and then a whole lifetime experience really that I could share. And so I do my coaching, actually coaching, hybrid of coaching, mentorship, and consulting almost. If Because if you were to define all of those three, they're like, very minute differences, right? But I love to share my experience as well and sort of give that advice, but at the same time, help them really find the answers within themselves. So I like doing that so far.
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Because there are a lot of, unfortunately,
Yeah.
a lot of women out there in need of this.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in one way, it's fortunate because we're not alone,
Right.
but it sure feels like it when you're going through this. Because, like you said, you're surrounded by people who have children, as am
Hmm.
I, right? Most people around us have kids, and so we tend to think I'm the only person in the world going through
Yeah.
this, and you're not. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is also, it adds a layer with the way we are today in our technology and social media, right? It's actually even harder for us because now it was back to school. Everyone was posting first grade, and we have a senior in high school. And I was like, great, good for you. It's like that. There is no bitterness, but it reminds you of what you don't have.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
trigger is probably not the word, but it just kind of like, it's a sting, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this you flinch. What
Right.
happened here?
Yeah. And now it's all over social
Yeah.
media and everyone posting and excited about it, which is great for them. But, the reality is for us, it's like, oh, yeah, we don't have anything to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we don't have anything to share that's like traditional
Right,
either,
right,
right?
right, right. Sure.
So,
In that context, I think like
right.
that, like you have nothing to
Yeah.
share, but obviously, yeah, we can do other things, right? That is more in alignment with us. But I
Yeah.
think in that context, it's just like a reality check, and then people are saying, like, I was reading some posts earlier, it's just like, oh, even holidays, Labor Day weekend, it's a trigger for everyone
Yeah.
because all the families barbecue and whatnot. And well, that's not a trigger for me. It's like it is to some people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another reminder.
Mhm.
Labor Day, it's Labor Day. You wouldn't think this is gonna be should be a trigger or something that causes pain, but it does because while like the holidays in December are about family, everybody's posting about what are you doing with your family for Labor
Yeah,
Day,
that's what it
right?
is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And then there's just this um definition that we're stuck with of what family is.
Hmm.
And so it can make some people feel that less than feeling
Right.
because I don't have that. So what does that make me? Oh, well, everybody has that and I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So cuz you talk about, realizing purpose and self-love. So tell me, what are some things that you do to or have done or would suggest like in that goal of realizing your purpose?
I think I think I mentioned earlier that the first step to even realizing all of these is really being radically honest with yourself. And once you get there, then you can be more aware. Like this self awareness is like half the battle. And then you become aware of what is it that I really want? What is it that I really enjoy? What brings me joy? What is it that I really want to do in this life? What are the next steps for me? And once you identify that, then I think you can, everything will just sort of like, the answers will be following that. So in my case, I find joy in really helping people. I'm an Enneagram 2. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Enneagram 2 is a
Hmm.
very helper. So I'm a helper. And I find joy in that. And so I'm constantly, while I'm a very emotional person, so I feel a lot. I'm a big empath. But I've also learned that because I find joy in helping others, I can redirect all my feelings into helping others. And when I help others, that makes me feel good. So it sort of covers up for that loss and the things that I don't like. And then I become aware of the things that I'm grateful for. So those are like really, I think it sounds very basic, but it really is very basic and simple, right? Yet it is hard to do. The first step, the beings, the self awareness, and really being conscious about what do I want? What will bring me joy? And it's just not about the money. It's really about that purpose and finding that. And some people can really misinterpret like having purpose as this one big thing, right? And I believe in our purposes can change as well. The passion can change, and it doesn't have to be just a one-time thing most of it in our lifetime. I feel like as long as there is an alignment between your mind, body, and heart, that's where the meaning is and that's where the purpose is. And I feel good and I feel really joy when I'm talking to someone. And even now, like I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now if I didn't start the podcast. And I'm enjoying the podcast. I'm enjoying this conversation with you right now. It brings me joy and it's a validation of this is what I'm really supposed to be doing right now. And like inadvertently that becomes the word purpose, right? Again, we can have different definitions of purpose, but it also depends on how you're going to interpret that and put meaning into it, like the purpose. I've just, I think, developed this superpower that I am claiming it, that superpower that I feel like I'm constantly curious about life and I'm constantly searching for a better life, especially having gone through deep depression where I couldn't work, I couldn't go to school for several years. I was bedridden and I was only getting up just to go to the bathroom. And even days that I couldn't shower because I didn't have it in me, like my body was weak and I've even attempted because that's how desperate I felt. I was really in the darkest pit. Having gone through that and being aware of that now, I've learned to really like, no, there is more to life than this. And it's the same. And that was from depression. But having gone through this infertility and field adoption, I'm like, wow, I guess this is really not meant for me. You know what? There is more to life than this. So is it now? Then I became really honest with myself. I do journaling and the meditation. Even if you don't have a meditation practice, like just sit down, silence, right? That could be so powerful. And just like envision, like, how would you see your life 5 years from now? What would it look like? Oh, sure. Okay, we don't have kids. I would love to be traveling somewhere, like, somewhere exotic, somewhere nice. I would be have enjoying my time with my husband. I have a successful business. But how do I get there? And I would feel so fulfilled. 5 years from now, I want to feel so fulfilled about helping so many people and supporting them. But how do I get there from here where I'm at right now? And I think that's where I get to redefine myself and I get to redefine this new path,
Yeah.
hence finding meaning and purpose along the way.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram. Um, I have two accounts. One is Link of Hearts, which was like the mental health advocacy. And then the other one is bychance.gathering, and that's for the podcast. And hopefully the gatherings that I will be having and the retreats I'll be curating very soon.
Wonderful. That will also be in the show notes for
So,
anybody who doesn't have anything to write on.
yes, yes.
Yeah. All right. So for my audience, what would you like? What message would you like to leave them with?
I think first is when these feelings come up for you, because they will come up regardless, right? Whether it's by a trigger or no trigger, they will come up. Allow yourself to really feel. Even if you're at work, if you're outside, go back to the car and sit there and let those feelings come out, because it really helps to let your body just go through it. It's very healing, it's very cathartic. And you need that. Give yourself permission and grace to just cry instead of judging it. Why am I crying again? I can't believe I'm not over this. All these judgments that we put on ourselves. And I know that because I've done that. But really give yourself grace and allow yourself to just be and go through the motion of it, because they are coming up for a reason that you may not understand, but just allow it to come up. And then when you feel like you're ready, then you get back up and dust yourself off and move on. But I think that's like the main thing that would really be the impactful on your mental health and even your physical health and overall like spirituality as well.
Yeah. Um, we're not great at just being, but our
Yeah.
emotions, our feelings are there to tell us something.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's hard to feel. I think that's the hardest of it all. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but if you know that you are going to come out on the other side after that crying, I always say, oh, I can almost see the light. Okay, I'm just going to stay here for a little while. I'm starting to see the light. Okay, I'm going to cry some more. Sometimes I honestly feel like if there's a heavy feeling in my heart that I cannot explain, I would honestly like listen to some music that would get me emotional, because I know that there's something here that I'm not processing. So I can get into that mood. Okay, cry if you have to, let it out. And it helps more than, yeah, it helps all the time. So that's my secret recipe.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest here. Again, this is Elizabeth Tiglao-Guss. She is the host of By Chance podcast, and she's a personal coach. Her focus is on helping women thrive, not just survive. All right. So that is it for today's episode, and I will see you all next week. I appreciate you listening. I hope this episode was helpful to you. If you liked what you heard, schedule a free discovery call with me to see how I can help you to feel worthy and live a fulfilling life. To schedule, click on the link in the episode notes, or you can find it on my website at pathonward.com. You can also see more from me on Instagram at childlesspathonward and Facebook and YouTube at Path Onward. Until next week, thanks again for listening.